Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literary Instruction's History and Implementation. Literacy has a long history that spans most of human history itself. Ever since people have started reading and writing, they've had to instruct others in these techniques. Kind of hard to communicate if no one else understands you. So, the history of literacy instruction is just as long as human written history itself. Unfortunately, as long as the history of reading and writing is, the history of literacy instruction is much more hodgepodge, with gaps and limited availability for most of history. Literacy, reading and writing, has often been secretive and very limited to certain classes and professions. But here in America, there's a great history of literary education. The University of Texas points out that even back in colonial times, there was a much higher rate of literacy here in the United States, or the future United States, the colonial colonies, than Europe at the same time. This is a response to some of the religious groups of the time believing that reading would allow for spiritual edification, while many of the founding fathers thought that an active media with a large population being able to read it would serve as a great way to deter tyranny and keep the freedom that had just been won from being lost. But even before the American Revolution, the colonies were home to an emphasis on education. Back in 1635, the first school was created in Virginia. 1636, Harvard opened. In 1647, saw a law passed in Massachusetts that any town over 50 people had to have someone who was able to teach the children to read and write. This combined with a perception that the ability to even sign one's own name, let alone being able to read and write, meant you were clearly more successful and a higher class of person. This helped drive a desire for American literacy and instruction. As time progressed, we started to see the advent of new things, such as the printing press, paper production, which allowed books to become affordable to most people. This led to an increase in reading being used as a way to entertain. Popular pulp magazines arose, offering a cheap way for people to be entertained before the advent of television, movies, and even before the radio. This gave people the desire to learn to read and helped drive literacy here in the United States to new heights. We also saw how literacy used as a form of entertainment actually led to a drop in literacy back in the 80s with the popularization of cable television. But this drop in the 80s helped trigger a new push for literary education itself and saw a change in the way it was taught. We started to see more money and more emphasis placed on education and new approaches being tried. We also saw an increase in the testing as ways for the government and by extension the citizens to monitor the effectiveness of that in literary instruction. It's been pointed out that even though there have been years of concern about the state of American literary education and the increase in funding, that the number of poor and underperforming students has actually risen. In order to combat this, we have seen the rise of the master reading teacher or the literary specialist. This is someone who has responsibility for readers in general, and they pay special attention to struggling readers. They have additional training and expertise to help guide both the specific readers directly as well as other staff members, and how to improve their own literary instruction. Master reading teachers or literary specialists are often broken down into reading specialists who work mostly with students, and reading coaches who work directly with the district and teachers themselves. Over time, the role of the literary specialist has changed. First seen right before World War II, it was an attempt to improve existing programs of the time. But then we started to see a shift from being supplemental support or to supplemental support for students in the 60s. This shift working with underprivileged groups was a result of the times and the civil rights movement. Currently, the position of the civil rights specialist, they do work with students, but at the same time, they work with the district and parents to improve the overall literacy of the school, but they spend most of their time working with teachers, either in individual training or professional development. Currently, the position is a jack of all trades, where there are many hats to wear. A literary specialist needs good leadership skills to accompany their training and their experience. Now, it's been listed by Dr. Hoke and others that there are 5 basic components to literature: phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Phonology is the sound of a language, especially the individual letters. Morphology is the sound that are placed together to form your base words. Syntax is how individual words come together to create a sentence. Semantics is the complex use of vocabulary to form an idea. And finally, pragmatics is the ability to use language in a functional and interactive way. Now, each of these must be integrated into the classroom and the curriculum. Modeling of correct sounds and speech patterns are key things that a teacher can do to help with phonology and morphology. Reading may not be of an importance to a kid, but providing them with a good example to follow, you will still help them even if they have difficulty handling the material. Implementation of a daily writing can be very successful if done correctly. The student gets practice, but also with proper guidance, the teacher and the student can be taught a better way to process what they are thinking, and that can help them make them more literate and improve their feelings towards their own writing. In addition to modeling, the teacher should incorporate various strategies to help the students with literacy, such as word walls or think pair shares. These help build ideas and reference ideas that they can then write about. These techniques can be useful in helping with the morphology, as well as help them learn new words. Also, proper modeling and strategies in groups will help scaffolding. And this can be used to help with the syntax and the semantics, since they allow the students to hear how other people would phrase the idea. Implementation of a school or district's vision for literary instruction often falls to the literary specialists themselves, with emphasis placed on graduation rates and test scores. The betterment of a student can sometimes fall by the wayside. Teaching to the test may not cover material that can actually be helpful to a underperforming student. That is why it's important to lay out the idea, and especially get the staff, parents, and students behind the idea and working towards the goal. Poor implementation will destroy the best laid plans. When teachers do not see the point and understand why they have something to do, they don't place an emphasis on it. And the kids can tell. If the teachers don't care, the parents, the kids won't care. Soon the activity will fall by the wayside and be left behind completely. I've seen this with various mandated activities over the years. The specialist needs to explain why it is being implemented, the benefits of it, and give good modeling so that the teachers are aware of the how and the why and are willing to put the effort in. Lacking these how and the why can make a teacher feel that the assignment is unimportant and unnecessary, and the kids will also. Once the teachers back something, the kids will be closer to backing it. Keeping the parents informed is one step towards getting them involved. Once you know the idea, then you can start to create other school-wide events that will bring members of the family in and get them involved, such as a family read night. Once the parents and the staff are invested, it is easy to get kids to buy into something that you're planning. They will see the importance of literacy and participate more. Thank you.